Hello, mathematicians. It's time for your math lesson. So today, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take out our journals, and we need to write in our journals because we're going to work a problem string in our journals today. Our lesson today is called overs and unders because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be practicing using the over and under strategy, but for division. We've done this many times all year. We are getting ready to start using it to think about in fractions, right? So here's what you need to do. Today you need to put the date on your journal page, 4/14/20, and then you're going to want to write overs and unders problem string because that's what we're going to do. And you can see I already wrote your first problem there, 660 divided by 10. Today, when I'm telling you these problems, usually there's a story problem to go along with it, but today they are not offering a story problem, which may make this a little more challenging to solve these problems. However, we need to think in terms of a ratio table because the big idea on this is looking for an anchor number. We're looking for an anchor number so that if the dividend is maybe one group of the divisor more or less, then what you can do is you can easily solve the problem by adding or subtracting one group to the quotient. So anchor numbers are really important in this one, and also the strategies of doubling and multiplying come into play as well. So our first problem, 660 divided by 10. Now I'm going to switch from my journal, only because it's easier for me if I write on this board to be able to show you. I'm going to write down that number, 660 divided by 10. When I write 660 divided by 10, I know that you all are quick to note that the answer to this is going to be 66, right? Because you could easily just look and you know that if you take a 0 off of here and a 0 off of here, one group is going to be equal to 66. So in order to get this started, we do need to do a ratio table. Now I have made a great big ratio table because I'm anticipating what we need to do for today. And what you should do is you need to make a ratio table in your book, and it probably should have like 10 spaces in it. So you'll need to write small, and we are going to need to use all these facts, or most of them, for most of the problems that we're solving today. All right, the very last problem I give you will be something very different, but you'll be using the strategies based on what you did here today to figure out the last problem. All right, so on our ratio table, in the first one, I'm going to put 66 in the top, and I'm going to put 1 on the bottom in my ratio table. And I know my problem was 660 divided by 10, right? That's what the problem was. What was 660 divided by 10? That was our problem. So what we had to do here when we use our ratio table, remember we're looking at what we did. Again, this is like doubling and multiplying. That's what we're working on. And today we didn't double this, we actually multiplied. So I multiplied the bottom by 10, which meant I needed to multiply the top by 10 to get the answer on that, right? So that's how I figured out the answer on the first one. Again, they're looking for the relationships on these. What is the relationship? The relationship is that 10 is 10 times greater than 1, right? 10 is 10 times greater than 1. 1 times 10 equals 10. Well, we can say the same thing on the top. 660 is 10 times bigger than 66 because we literally had to take the number 66 and multiply that by 10. All right, the next problem that they're going to give us, and I'm going to move my ratio table while I write down the problem just so you can see, is 594 divided by 66. How would I solve that problem? Now I'm going to tell you, the way I grew up doing math, I would initially just start doing, making it into a regular division problem, putting it under 594 divided by 66 right here, and I would start trying to figure out how many times 66 I could put up here. And I can see, now that I'm older, that the technique that we're doing right here is probably a nice and easy and probably a smart technique to make me be able to quickly solve problems. But I'm going to be real honest again. I wouldn't initially think, what do I know about 66 and 594? Because it takes me to have to, I never think about subtracting or adding to figure those out. But if I were to take 660 and subtract 66 from it, right here, I'm going to find out that the answer to that is 594. So that tells me if I know that 10 groups of 66 equals 660, and I know that if I take away one of those groups, I know I can go to my problems, to my ratio table. And on my ratio table right here, I can now write a 9 here, right? And I can write 594. And how did I get that? Well, simply to go from 660 to 594, I had to subtract one group, right? And we know that a group is 66. Subtract one group. So I went from 10 groups down on the bottom to 9 groups. One group is equal to 66, right? So one group, so 660, take away that one group is going to leave me with 594. So that's pretty simple. So, but again, I wouldn't think about that initially, but now that I know we've been practicing these strategies so much, I'm like, oh, why would I never try that? Of course we should try it. All right, I have to take my ratio table down. Let me give you the next problem that they want you to work through. This problem is 726 divided by 66. What's the answer on that one? Well, I know that 594 is less than 660, and that was one group. I wonder if 660 plus 66, 660 plus 66 happens to be 726. Let's find that out. 6 plus 6 is 12. Bring down my two groups of 10, right? Add the 1 over here. 6 plus 1 is 7. Look at that. So now I know this is like that 10 groups of 66 plus one more group, right? So if I go back to my over and under strategy chart, what I can do is I can go from this 10 here, and this was a plus 1 group, right? So from the 10 here, jump over here, and it is a plus 1 group. And one group equals 66, right? So I know that now I'd have 11 groups, and this is going to be 726. All right, not too bad. Now the next problems are still going to follow suit in here, but let me show you what they are. The first problem that they're going to give us is 132 divided by 66. And right away, they're thinking that you are going to be a smart cookie, and you might use that multiplication and say, well, I know even adding, if I add 66 plus 66, that's like saying 6 times 2, right? So if I take 66 times 2, and I know 6 times 2 is 12, carry the 1 there. 2 times 6 is 12 plus 1 more. Look at that, 132. So now I have another number that I can add on to my ratio table. 2 groups of 66 is equal to 132, right? That's what that was. 2 groups is equal to 132. Here's where the next part is going to come. All right, the next number they're going to give us, hopefully I will say this correctly and write it correctly because I'm thinking it correctly, but yesterday in my last video, even though I was thinking correctly, I didn't do that. They take the number 1,320 divided by 66. And I'm just going to check, what do you remember about 1,320 versus 132? How many times is this? I had to multiply this number by 10, right? In order to get 1,320. And I'm just going to double check on our paper that I am telling you exactly the right thing. I am. All right. But so now when I go to my ratio table, here, 1,320. To get this number, I had to multiply that by 10, correct? Whatever I do to the top, I need to do to the bottom, right? So this one needs to be a times 10. 2 times 10 is 20. Pretty good. I need to know those numbers too. All right. The next number that they're going to have us try to solve for, and I'm going to get a new piece of paper here, add to my paper. 1,386 divided by 66. Again, our strategies today are called over and under. So what do you think 1,386 is? Do you think it's over or under? The last one I had was 1,320, and I know that 1,386 is bigger. And I'm going to guess if I take these two numbers, the difference between them is going to be 66, right? So I could take 1,386, take away 1,320, and look at that. It is one group, right? So what do I need to do now? To get the difference between these two, I had to subtract 1, right? So 1,320, oh, I'm sorry. That means I added one group. 1,386 in order to get this plus one group, right? Do I need to write group out there? That will help you. So if I add one group to the top, you know I need to add plus one group on the bottom. That means this is 21. Correct? Without doing the calculations, I'm just doing a ratio chart and I'm able to figure it out. Now, I have to do many calculations this way, but I can see it all logically, and it's plus or minus 1. That's what's happening. Or times 10. Those are the two things that I'm doing. I'm doing multiplication and then I'm doubling. That's what I did. And remember earlier I said those would be some of the keys that we would be using. All right. Our next problem on this part 1 is 1,254 divided by 66. Well, I'm pretty sure right now that you can figure out that if I had to add a group here, maybe I needed to subtract a group here. So 1,320, 1,254, always putting the number on the bottom. This probably gets a little confusing because I'm always subtracting here, and so I have to think in my mind, what did I have to do? This is a bigger number, which meant I had to add a group. So this number is actually, I think I wrote the wrong number. Nope, it isn't. I wrote the right number. This number is actually smaller than my 1,320. So chances are I would have to take away a group. Or 2, we'll find out, plus a group on here. All right, so let's find out. So subtracting 4 from 10, that's going to give me a 6. Subtracting 5 from 11, that's another 6. So I would have to subtract one group, just one group. I should have put my minus sign a little over. Subtracting one group. So again, I can go back to my ratio table without really doing a whole heck of a lot of math right here. And now from my 20, I subtract one group. And from my 320, I subtract one group. So that's going to be 19, and this was 1,254. All right, that's the end of part 1 on our video. All right, starting on part 2, we're going to try a couple other problems. I have 3 more problems for you. All right. If you are not understanding this at all, I hope that you are pausing the video and able to try the calculations on your own to double check my work. So I really don't mind. I'm human and I do make mistakes. I don't mind if you find that I did something wrong. Please let me know, okay? But I also want you to understand how to do this, and sometimes we can do that the best when we're thinking about how we would do it. All right, here comes a big tough number. 6,600 divided by 66. How do I solve that? Not so complicated now, is it? After doing all of the ones we did. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to review quickly right here. I said one group is equal to 66, and we had 10 groups that were equal to 660. 660, in order to make this 6,600, what would I have to do to that? Multiply it by 10, right? And if I multiply the top by 10, I need to multiply the bottom by 10. So that's going to end up being 100. Now, what I want to do is I want to go back to my big ratio table, and I want to put those numbers in here. 6,600, right there, is 100 groups of 66, right? That's how we can figure that out. Now, the next number that they gave us to try to figure out is the number 6,468 divided by 66. Again, this sounds very complicated, and I would just straight up start doing the regular algorithm here. 4,600 divided by 66, and I would be thinking to myself, I know that 6 times 10 is 660. That's going to be more than right here, 646 that I would do the first part. I know that 10 is more than that, so I need to go less than that. And I would then start multiplying 6 times 9 and have to go through that and figure out if that was enough or if it was too much. And I would go back and forth. But again, if I've already filled out my ratio table here, I can be looking at patterns that I'm seeing. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this number and say, is it more or less than that anchor number of, here's my 10, that's an anchor number. I know that 10 groups is 660. I also know that 100 is an anchor number, right? So 100 divided by 6,600 is 66 groups. So let me see, this is smaller, which would mean I would have to take away so many groups. Let's find out how many I can just by adding or subtracting. So 6,468. Let's try adding today. All right. 66, or 6 plus 8, 14, 12 plus 1 is 13, and 4 plus 1 is 5, 6, it's still smaller than 6,000 up here. But it seems like it's starting to make sense to me. Let me try one more. So 6,534 plus another group of 66. So 6 plus 4 is 10. 6 plus 3 plus 1 is another 10. 5 plus 1 is 6, and bring down my 6. Look at that. I had to add 2 groups of 66. That sounds familiar. How much were 2 groups of 66 here? 2 groups of 66 were 132, right? So I wonder if I take away 132, or 2 groups of 66, right? That's what that means. 2 groups of 66. I wonder if I take that away from 600 or 6,600. I know what that gives me, 6,468, right? So look, I'm going to go to my ratio table. In order to get my 6,468, I had to subtract 2 groups, right? If I subtract 2 groups from the top, remember I have to subtract 2 groups from the bottom. Minus 2 groups. 100, take away 2, 98. And there I'd have the answer on that. Now for the challenge one, they want you to use that same sort of math, thinking about things. All right? And we won't have a ratio table for this one, but I am going to give you a little hint. Here's your number. Look at this number. 8,712 divided by 88. Again, I'm going to think ratio table on here, right? One group of equals 88, right? What would 10 groups equal? $880, right? What would 100 groups equal? Look at that. So, I wonder how close. Ooh, I can just look right here and I can see with the 88 that this is going to equal 10, 10, 8, 8. How many groups was that? 8,712 is one group less than 8,800, right? So minus one group. And there I didn't have to do a whole bunch of multiplication to try to get to the right number. Good job. All right, mathematicians, you have a challenge today. You do not have a student book, or do? Let me look on the front here. You do have a student book page, sorry. It's page 273, and you also have a home connection, and that is pages 141 to 142, and we're still working on our spiral review, which is 4.1. If you have any questions about today, please send me an email. I hope you're doing your work, and remember, you can take pictures of what you're doing and you can send it to me either in an email or you can put it in that share folder. I'm fine if you want to attach it to an email and show me that you've done that through Canvas. You can actually attach pictures. So I'm happy with that. That would work. So any questions, so let me know. Now go get your work done.